Hello friends, it's Chari. Today I'm back with an Easter card with all our fun Easter friends. For this card, I am going to use the new Stamp and Stencil Easter egg set, along with the spring basket set, and of course, I like big butterflies. So I've pulled out all the images I'm going to use, and I will be stamping them in some lawnfawn jet black ink so that I can do some coloring with my alcohol markers. Now I'm going to start down here with my sentiment. I love the sentiment with the open letters, and I also love that the Stamp and Stencil Easter eggs set has a die that cuts these out. So we will have a die cut sentiment, which I think is really fun. And I'm going with a rainbow color scheme for the letters, and I started with this because then I can pull from these colors for my other images. And I just have them in order as you see them there on the left, and I'm just going through and coloring each letter. Now I'm moving on to my images, and of course from the spring basket stamp set, I went with this cute little bunny with the basket. He matches the bunny with the eggs, so these two are great to use together. And I'm just coloring him with some peachy cream colors. I've got some pink for the inside of his ears, and then I'll just leave the tail white. I'm also adding some little cheeks, and then I'm using those same colors to color my lamb, or just the lamb's face and the ears and the legs down there. I will color the hooves in a dark color. And of course, he needs some rosy cheeks as well. And for the wool of the lamb, I'm going in with some cool grays. So here is a C3. This is the darkest color I'm going to use. Then I'm going to pull in a C1 and kind of blend that out a little bit, but not completely color in that wool. And then I'll actually grab my C00, which is very, very pale, and kind of blend out that line. For my little chicks up here that are going to be in my basket, I'm pulling from those colors that I used for the sentiment at the bottom. So these chicks are in some brightly colored Easter eggs, and they are hatching out for Easter. And I just think this was really fun to add the chicks in this way, so we have all these fun Easter characters. I'll go in with green for that last egg. I wasn't sure what color I wanted that. I figured if I colored in my chicks, it would kind of give me a hint as to what color I should use. Now I'm using the same color I used for the chicks for that little edging on my basket. And then I am going to color my basket brown so it is nice and classic. You could always color this a brightly colored Easter basket, but I have a lot of colors happening on this card, so I decided to stay pretty neutral with my basket. And for this basket, I colored it all over with that E13, and now I'm going in with that E15 to trace the details and add some shadows, and then I'll blend it back out with the E13. I'm going to do the same just at the base of the handles as well, just so it has a little bit of shadow. Now onto my butterfly. I'm using some warm grays for the body of the butterfly. And then again, I am pulling from those colors I used on the sentiment for the colors of my butterfly. So I am coloring the little details on the wings with some blues. And this is just a darker shade to add a little bit of shading to those blues. I'll blend that out with my B12, which is what I used on the sentiment at the bottom. Then I have that bright green for the in-between details. And then for the edges, I went with that pale purple that I used in the sentiment, and I think this butterfly turned out really cute in all those cool colors. I know that my background is going to be yellow, so I tried to steer clear of those warm colors so that this little butterfly would stand out on that background. And of course, the last thing we need to do is color our egg. And the Stamp and Stencil Easter eggs has the stencil included, which makes coloring this egg super easy. So I am using some fresh lavender ink for the solid egg for the base. And then I'm going to pick a design and switch over to that grape jelly and do a tone on tone egg design on this Easter egg. You could also have a white egg with details, but I wanted a colorful egg. And I'll use the coordinating dies to cut out all of my images and my sentiment. So here they are cut out. I'm going to set those aside and work on my background. For my background, I'm using the sunburst backdrop die and some yellow spiffy speckles paper. I want to keep this circle in the center, so I'm just taping it to the outside piece before I pop this out of my die. Now I wanted to add some inking to the edges because I always think this really makes the background stand out really nicely. So I'm using some sunflower ink and a blending brush and just dusting those edges with that yellow to make it a little bit darker. I'm also going to add some very yellow gold splatters so that when this card hits the light, we have some shimmer in the background as well. And once I have this all splattered, I'll just set this aside to dry. Now I need a place for my little critters to sit, so I'm going to create a little piece of grass. This is also going to be where my sentiment goes. So I just used the grassy border to cut this piece. I kind of marked how far down I needed to trim it to have space for my sentiment. This is a little bit wider than I need. I'm just creating a little piece of grass that's not going to go all the way across. So I'm looking at that with my background piece and deciding where I need to trim that. And I always like to trim right between blades of grass so I don't have any strange pieces of grass kind of hanging out. I'm using some celery stick ink just to carefully dust those blades of grass and define them a little bit more. And now my gold splatter is all dry and I can add my background to my card base and start to build my card. Now, as I said before, the sentiment is going to go on the grass, and I'm actually going to put this on with a tape runner instead of liquid glue because I'm not sure if I'm going to need to move these around to get them nice and straight or nice and even. And it actually worked out great because I ended up moving them. You're going to see here in a little bit. So I'm putting them down low right now on that strip, making sure they're nice and straight because I thought that my little characters were going to fill that space above. And I am going to pop this up with some foam tape so it is popped up off the background. But once I got my little characters over here, and of course I need to add my little chicks to the basket, which I will do that first. And luckily the die cuts out this little extra piece below the image so you have a place to glue them into the basket. And just look how cute they are. I just think they're adorable. And I am going to pop up all of the images. So I'm putting foam squares on everything. The bunny, the lamb with the egg, and the butterfly will get foam squares as well. And so I have these two together and they're going to kind of overlap here in the middle. So I'm looking at them deciding, do I want them tucked behind the grass or do I want them in front? And they kind of fill the whole space. So if they are in front, that kind of covers up the grass completely. And I like the look of that grass. And so I decided I wanted them both tucked behind the grass. And I'm going to cut a couple of these in half just to put on the handle of the basket because it's skinny. You could also use some little foam strips and cut them into tiny pieces as well. But this will just support the basket handle too, which I really want to make sure everything is nice and supported. I'm going to tuck this little bunny in his basket behind the grass, and then I will do the same for the lamb and the egg. And now this is where I'm like, oh, that sentiment's a little low, but you're going to see me fix it here in a minute. First, I'm going to add my little butterfly flying up here above the Easter basket. And of course, we have his little trail, and I will just add that with some liquid glue directly to the background. So this is where not using some liquid glue really helped. I could pop these up and just center them in that grass from the top to the bottom, and it looked perfect. Now to add my glitter, I'm going to add glitter to the details of the butterfly, to the chick's eggs, and the detail on the basket, and then a couple of the lines of the Easter egg itself. I also added some glitter to the letters. This time I did not do the whole letter. I actually only did the bottom as if we had taken that sentiment and dipped the bottom into glitter. Now, this is actually the next day, and I was like, it looks kind of empty at the bottom. I decided I wanted to add some texture with some twine. So my glitter is actually all dry. Don't worry about me smearing it. and I'm using some coral twine. I've wrapped it around 3 times, and I'm just tying it in a little bow over there towards the left. I'll trim off the tails, and I think that made it look really nice. It kind of wraps it up like an Easter basket, having that bow at the bottom. And I just love how this card turned out. It's so cute and colorful. I love doing little vignette type scenes in the center of a card, and mixing sets like this is so much fun. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.